What if I told you that one moment of cruelty could reveal the greatest musical talent of a generation, that a girl everyone dismissed as worthless would play piano in a way that would leave an entire room of millionaires speechless? Picture this. A 17-year-old girl sits at a grand piano in a billionaire's mansion. Her clothes are torn. Her hair is tangled. She smells of the streets she's been sleeping on for over a year. Around her, 50 of the wealthiest people in Philadelphia are laughing, placing bets on how badly she'll fail. The billionaire himself, Richard Blackwood, leans back in his leather chair with a cruel smile and says the words that will haunt him forever. Play something beautiful, or you don't eat. That's the rule. And honestly, I don't think street trash knows the difference between Rachmaninoff and a ringtone. The room erupts in laughter. But Destiny Williams doesn't flinch. She simply places her scarred fingers on the ivory keys. And what happens next will change everything. But to understand this moment, to truly grasp what's about to unfold, we need to go back. Back to where Destiny's story really begins. Back to a small apartment in South Philadelphia, where a little girl first learned that music wasn't just sound. It was survival. It was love. It was everything. 10 years earlier, Destiny Williams was 7 years old, and her world revolved around two things: her mother, Angela Williams, and the old upright piano that sat against the wall of their tiny one-bedroom apartment. Angela wasn't famous. She wasn't wealthy. She was a street musician who played jazz piano outside the Reading Terminal Market 6 days a week. Her case open for tips, her fingers dancing across a portable keyboard that had seen better days. But when she played, something magical happened. People stopped. They listened. They remembered that beauty could exist even in the hardest places. Every evening after her shift, Angela would come home, scoop up Destiny, and sit her on the piano bench. "Come on, baby girl," she'd say, her voice warm as summer rain. "Let's make some magic." Those lessons were nothing like the rigid classical training happening in the music schools across town. Angela taught Destiny that piano wasn't about perfection. It was about feeling. She'd play a classical piece, then suddenly shift into jazz, her fingers improvising, dancing, telling stories without words. You hear the Destiny, she'd ask, her hands flowing from Chopin into a bluesy riff. That's the conversation. Classical music is beautiful, but jazz is alive. Jazz is us, and the magic happens when you bring them together. Destiny would watch her mother's hands, mesmerized. Even at 7, she understood something profound was happening. This wasn't just music. This was language. This was love made audible. By the time Destiny was 10, she could play pieces that shocked people twice her age. She had her mother's gift for blending classical precision with jazz soul. When she played at the local community center's talent show, the judges sat in stunned silence. One of them, a retired music teacher, pulled Angela aside afterward. "Your daughter has something extraordinary," she said. "She needs proper training, real lessons." But proper training cost money. Money Angela didn't have. She was making just enough from street performances to keep them fed and housed. Destiny's father had left before she was born, and it had always been just the two of them against the world. "We'll figure it out," Angela told Destiny that night, holding her close. "You've got something special, baby. Real special. And nobody can take that away from you. That gift, it lives in here." She tapped Destiny's chest right over her heart. "Not in fancy schools or expensive pianos. In here. Remember that." Destiny nodded, not fully understanding how important those words would become, how they would echo through the darkest times ahead, how they would be the last real lesson her mother ever taught her. Everything changed the summer. Destiny turned 15. Angela had been coughing for months, brushing it off as a cold that wouldn't quit. But the cough got worse. Then came the weight loss, the exhaustion, the night sweats. By the time she finally went to a free clinic, the news was devastating. Stage 3 lung cancer, aggressive, spreading fast, no insurance, no savings, just a single mother and her teenage daughter facing an impossible mountain. The treatments were brutal. Angela tried to keep working, but chemotherapy stole her strength, her hair, her ability to sit at a piano for more than a few minutes. Destiny dropped out of school to take care of her mother and work part-time at a corner store, lying about her age to get the job. The bills piled up anyway. Medical debt, back rent, utilities they couldn't afford to keep on. The piano, that beautiful upright that had been their sanctuary, had to be sold. Destiny cried when the men came to take it away, and Angela held her with what little strength she had left. "It's okay, baby," Angela whispered, though tears streamed down her own face. "The music's still in you. They can take the piano, but they can't take what's inside you. Never forget that." For 8 months, Destiny watched her mother fight, watched her waste away, watched the woman who had filled their home with music fade into silence. On a cold February morning, 3 weeks after Destiny's 16th birthday, Angela Williams took her last breath in a palliative care unit bed. She was 41 years old. Her final words to Destiny were a whisper. "Keep playing, baby. Promise me. No matter what happens, keep playing. That's how I'll hear you. That's how I'll know you're okay." Destiny promised. She had no idea how hard that promise would be to keep. With no other family, no money, and nowhere to go, Destiny became a ward of the state. She was placed in a foster home on the outskirts of the city. The family seemed nice enough at first, but Destiny quickly realized they were only in it for the monthly check. 3 other foster kids lived there, all of them damaged in their own ways, all of them just trying to survive. There was no piano, no music. When Destiny asked if she could practice somewhere, anywhere, the foster mother laughed. "Piano girl, you need to focus on reality. Music doesn't pay bills. You want to be useful. Get a real job when you're old enough." For 6 months, Destiny tried. She tried to fit into this cold, loveless house, tried to ignore the ache in her chest where her mother's absence lived, tried not to think about piano keys under her fingers. But on a night when the foster father came home drunk and violent, when she heard one of the younger kids crying in the next room, when she realized this place was just another kind of prison, Destiny made a choice. She left, took nothing but the clothes on her back and a small photo of her mother that she kept in her pocket. She was 16 and a half years old. And just like that, Destiny Williams became homeless. The streets of Philadelphia are not kind to a teenage girl alone. That first night, Destiny slept in a bus shelter, jumping at every sound, terrified of what might happen. She quickly learned the rules of survival: where to find free meals, which shelters were safe, how to avoid the predators who saw vulnerability as opportunity, how to make herself invisible. By day, she'd go to the public library, to stay warm, to use the bathroom, to pretend for a few hours that she was still a person with a future. By night, she'd find whatever safe corner she could, usually behind a dumpster or in a doorway, and try to sleep through the fear. But Destiny never forgot her promise to her mother. Keep playing, no matter what. She discovered that a small music shop on Sansom Street opened early, and the owner, an elderly man named Mr. Peterson, would unlock the door at 6 in the morning to prepare for the day. For 2 weeks, Destiny watched from across the street, working up the courage. Finally, one cold October morning, she walked in just as he was opening. "I know I can't buy anything," she said quickly before he could tell her to leave. But I used to play piano. My mom taught me. She died last year. I just need to play sometimes. Please, I won't break anything. I won't bother customers. I just need to touch a piano again." Mr. Peterson looked at this skinny girl with haunted eyes and dirty clothes, and something in his face softened. Maybe he saw his own daughter who'd passed away years before. Maybe he just recognized desperate honesty. Whatever the reason, he nodded. "Every morning," he said, 6 to 7:30 before customers arrive. You can practice on the old Yamaha in the back. But the moment I say, stop, you stop. Deal. Deal, Destiny whispered, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Thank you so much. For the next year, that became Destiny's sanctuary. Every single morning, no matter the weather, no matter how little sleep she'd gotten, she'd be there at 6 sharp. Mr. Peterson would let her in without a word, and for 90 minutes, Destiny would play. She played everything she remembered. The classical pieces her mother taught her, the jazz improvisations, the fusion of both that was uniquely theirs. Some mornings she played beautifully. Other mornings she played through tears, her fingers stumbling, her heart breaking all over again. But she always played. Mr. Peterson never asked questions. But sometimes on particularly cold mornings, he'd leave a cup of hot coffee on top of the piano, a bagel, a granola bar, small kindnesses that reminded Destiny there was still good in the world. The library was her other refuge. She'd spend hours there not just for warmth, but to watch YouTube videos of great pianists. She studied their techniques, their interpretations. She'd memorize pieces she'd never seen before, then go to the music shop the next morning and play them by ear. The librarian, Mrs. Chen, noticed this quiet girl who came every day, who sat at the computers watching classical music like other kids watched cartoons. One day she pulled Destiny aside. "You're that girl who plays at Peterson's shop, aren't you?" she asked gently. "I've heard about you. People talk. They say there's a homeless girl who plays piano like an angel." Destiny tensed, ready to run, but Mrs. Chen held up a hand. "I'm not going to report you. I'm not going to call anyone. I just want you to know that you're welcome here. Always. And if you ever need anything, you tell me." "Understood." Destiny nodded, not trusting her voice. These small acts of kindness kept her going, but they couldn't erase the reality of her situation. She was 17 now, had been on the streets for over a year, and every day was a battle for survival. She'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. Her clothes were falling apart. She had a scar on her left hand from a broken bottle she'd used to defend herself one night, a thin white line that ran from her thumb to her wrist. Some days Destiny wondered if she should just give up, if surviving was even worth it anymore, if her mother would be disappointed that this was what her daughter's life had become. But every morning at 6, she'd walk into that music shop, and when her fingers touched those piano keys, something inside her came alive again. The music reminded her of who she was, who she'd been, who she might still become. She had no way of knowing that everything was about to change. That in just a few weeks on a cold November evening, she'd make a desperate decision that would lead her to the most important performance of her life. A performance that would happen in front of the last people on earth who would ever believe in her. Richard Blackwood was a man who believed he'd earned every dollar of his $4.2 billion fortune. Born in a working-class neighborhood in Pittsburgh, he'd clawed his way up from poverty through a combination of intelligence, ruthlessness, and impeccable timing in the real estate market. By 40, he owned half the commercial properties in Philadelphia. By 50, his hospitality empire stretched across 6 states. By 58, which is how old he was now, he'd become one of those wealthy men who view their success as proof of their superiority. Every November, Richard hosted what he called his entertainment for dinner charity gala at his mansion in Chestnut Hill. The concept was simple, and in Richard's mind, brilliant. Aspiring performers, usually people down on their luck, would audition for the chance to perform at his party. If they entertained his wealthy guests successfully, they'd receive a hot meal and a small cash prize. If they failed, they'd be sent away with nothing. Richard genuinely believed he was doing charity work. He was giving people a chance, wasn't he? An opportunity to prove themselves. And if they couldn't meet his standards well, that just proved they didn't deserve help in the first place. His guests loved it. Every year, 50 of Philadelphia's wealthiest residents would gather in his grand ballroom, drink his expensive wine, eat his catered food, and watch desperate people perform for their amusement. It was like dinner theater, except the stakes were real, and the failures were genuine. This year's event was particularly well attended. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers. The tables were set with china that cost more per plate than most people's monthly rent. And the grand Steinway piano, Richard's pride and joy, sat waiting on the elevated stage. Among the guests was Dr. Eleanor Monroe, a professor of piano at the Curtis Institute of Music, one of the most prestigious conservatories in the world. She'd been invited by a friend and had come reluctantly uncomfortable with the premise, but curious despite herself. She sat near the back, nursing a glass of wine, watching the parade of nervous performers with growing unease. Richard stood at the front of the room, microphone in hand, his silver hair perfectly styled, his custom suit probably worth more than most cars. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice booming with confidence, "welcome to the 15th Annual Entertainment for Dinner Gala. As always, the rules are simple. Our performers tonight will give us their absolute best. If they succeed in entertaining us, in moving us, in proving they have genuine talent, they'll be rewarded with a hot meal and $500. If they fail..." He paused for effect, and the crowd chuckled. "Well, I'm sure they'll find dinner somewhere else." More laughter. Richard smiled, basking in it. What none of them knew was that working quietly in the kitchen, ensuring every detail of the evening went smoothly, was a man named James. He'd been Richard's head of household staff for 12 years, a quiet, dignified man in his 50s who kept his opinions to himself and did his job with quiet excellence. But James had a secret. He'd once had a daughter, Maya, who'd run away from home at 16 after a terrible argument. He'd searched for her for years, following every lead, checking every shelter, never giving up hope. Until the day the police found her body in an abandoned building. Overdose. She'd been gone for 3 years before he even knew she was dead. Every year when James watched these desperate people perform for Richard's amusement, watched the wealthy guests mock and laugh, something inside him broke a little more. Because he saw his Maya in every one of them. The lost, the dismissed, the invisible. Tonight that feeling would become unbearable. Destiny Williams hadn't eaten in 2 days. The shelter she usually went to had been full. The soup kitchen had run out of food before she got to the front of the line. She'd spent the previous night shivering in a doorway, and now on this cold November evening, the hunger was getting dangerous. Not the kind of hunger that just makes you uncomfortable. The kind that makes you dizzy, that makes your hands shake, that makes you desperate enough to do things you'd normally never consider. She was walking past the Chestnut Hill mansions, heading nowhere in particular, when she saw the lights. One house blazed like a beacon, every window glowing music drifting out into the night. Through the tall windows, she could see people in evening gowns and tuxedos, see tables laden with more food than she'd seen in months. Destiny knew she shouldn't, knew it was a bad idea. But desperation has a way of overriding common sense. She made her way around to the back of the house looking for a kitchen entrance, maybe a staff member who'd take pity on her. Her feet were numb in her worn-out sneakers. Her jacket, way too thin for November, did almost nothing against the cold. The back door was slightly ajar. Warm air and the smell of cooking food drifted out. Destiny's stomach clenched painfully. Before she could talk herself out of it, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. She found herself in a service hallway. To her left, she could hear the clatter of a busy kitchen. To her right, music and laughter from the party. She stood there frozen, not sure what to do next. "Can I help you?" Destiny spun around. A man in a suit stood there, clearly staff, his expression more curious than hostile. This was James. "I'm sorry," Destiny said quickly, backing toward the door. "I didn't mean to. I haven't eaten in a while, and I thought maybe—" James studied her, saw the hunger in her eyes, the desperation, the pride fighting not to beg. Saw his daughter's ghost in this skinny girl with tangled hair. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Destiny. Destiny Williams. How old are you?" "Destiny 17. James was quiet for a moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. "There's a party happening tonight," he said. "The host, Mr. Blackwood, he has this tradition. Performers entertain his guests. If they do well, they get fed and paid. If you're willing to try, I could get you on the list." Destiny's eyes widened. "Perform? I don't have any talent. I can't sing or dance or anything. Can't do anything?" James asked. "Nothing at all." Destiny hesitated. Then quietly, "I used to play piano. My mom taught me, before she died. Used to, or still can. Destiny admitted. "I practice every morning at a music shop. The owner lets me. But I haven't performed for anyone in years. And I definitely don't look like I should be at a party like this." James looked at her torn jeans, her dirty jacket, her haunted eyes. He knew exactly what Richard and his guests would think. Knew they'd mock her. Knew it would probably be cruel. But he also remembered Maya. Remembered all the times his daughter needed help and never got it. Remembered how easy it is for the world to look away from people like Destiny. "Listen to me," he said, his voice firm. "Those people in there, they're going to judge you. They're going to be cruel. But if you can really play piano, if you're really good, you might have a chance. And you'll definitely get a meal no matter what happens. I'll make sure of that." Destiny's hands were shaking, and it wasn't just from hunger. "There's a piano. A Steinway grand. One of the finest instruments you'll ever touch." Something flickered in Destiny's eyes. A memory. Her mother's hands on keys. The promise she'd made. "Keep playing, baby. No matter what happens, keep playing." "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it." James nodded. "Follow me." And Destiny. Whatever happens in there, remember, you're worth more than they'll ever understand. James led Destiny through the service corridors to a small staff room near the kitchen. "Wait here," he said. "The performers go on one at a time. You'll be last. That's actually good. It gives you time to prepare mentally." Destiny nodded, her heart pounding. Through the walls, she could hear music, laughter, the clink of glasses and silverware. It sounded like a different world, a world she'd never belonged to, even before she was homeless. James returned 10 minutes later with a bottle of water and a granola bar. "Eat this slowly," he said. "If you eat too fast on an empty stomach, you'll get sick. And drink the water. You need to stay hydrated." Destiny took them with shaking hands. "Thank you. You don't even know me. Why are you helping?" James was quiet for a moment. "Then I had a daughter once. She'd be about your age now. She needed help and the world looked away. I won't do that to someone else's daughter." "I'm sorry," Destiny said softly. "Me too." James straightened. "Now I need to tell you what you're walking into. Mr. Blackwood, the host. He's not a kind man. Neither are most of his guests. They come here to be entertained, but also to feel superior. They like watching people fail. It makes them feel better about themselves. Then why let me do this? Because every now and then, someone surprises them. Someone shows them they're wrong about people like us. And when that happens, it matters. He paused. Can you really play yes? How good Destiny thought about the mornings at Mr. Peterson's shop, the hours of practice, the muscle memory that had survived everything else she'd lost. I don't know how to measure good, but when I play, I feel like my mom's still here, like she's listening. So yeah, I think I'm good. James smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Then you go out there and you play for her, not for them. For her. Can you do that? I can try. They could hear applause from the ballroom, then laughter. Another performer had just finished. From the sound of it, not successfully. That's the third one tonight, James said. 2 more to go before you. Use this time. Center yourself. Remember why you play. He left, and Destiny was alone with her thoughts and the distant sound of the grand piano being played by someone else. She closed her eyes and thought about her mother. About the last time they'd played together before Angela got too sick, before everything fell apart. I'm going to keep my promise, Mom, she whispered. No matter what happens out there, I'm going to play like you taught me, with soul, with truth. I'm going to make you proud. She didn't know that in the ballroom, Richard Blackwood was about to make an announcement that would change the entire trajectory of the night, or that among his guests, Dr. Eleanor Monroe was growing increasingly uncomfortable with the cruelty she was witnessing, or that in less than an hour, every single person in that room would be forced to confront their own assumptions about worth talent and what it really means to deserve a chance. Destiny Williams was about to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. The fourth performer of the evening was a middle-aged man named Thomas, who'd introduced himself as a classically trained opera singer fallen on hard times. He stood center stage, his suit worn but clean, his hands clasped nervously in front of him. When he opened his mouth to sing, his voice cracked on the very first note. The ballroom fell silent, but not the good kind of silence, the anticipatory kind, the waiting for disaster kind. Thomas tried to recover, pushed forward with an aria from La Bohème, but the nerves had him. His voice wavered, strained missed notes. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He could see the expressions on the faces below him. Boredom, disappointment, barely concealed amusement. When he finished, the applause was perfunctory, polite at best. Richard Blackwood stood from his seat, his expression neutral. Thank you, Thomas, he said, his voice carrying easily across the room. That was an attempt. Unfortunately, we're looking for excellence tonight, not effort. James will show you out. But I was told there would be a meal, even if for those who meet our standards. Richard interrupted smoothly. I'm afraid that wasn't it. Next performer, please. Thomas's face crumbled. James appeared at his elbow, gently guiding him toward a side exit. As they passed through the door, Thomas was crying. The guests barely noticed. They were already buzzing with conversation, refilling their wine glasses, placing quiet bets on whether the next performer would do any better. Dr. Eleanor Monroe watched this unfold with growing disgust. She'd known Richard Blackwood was arrogant, but this was something else. This was cruelty dressed up as charity. She was seriously considering leaving when the fifth performer took the stage. This was a young woman named Andrea, maybe 25, carrying a violin. Unlike Thomas, she looked confident. She'd done this before. She settled the violin under her chin, took a breath, and began to play. And she was good. Actually good. She played a technically perfect rendition of a Vivaldi concerto, her fingers flying, her bow work precise. The room quieted. Several guests nodded appreciatively. Even Richard looked impressed. When Andrea finished, the applause was genuine. She smiled, clearly relieved. Richard stood again. Now that was much better. Technically proficient. Clean execution. Well done. Andrea's smile widened. She was going to get fed, going to get that prize money. However, Richard continued, and Andrea's smile faltered. Technical proficiency isn't enough. Anyone can learn to play notes correctly. We're looking for something more. Something special. Something that moves us. And I'm afraid that while your playing was adequate, it wasn't exceptional. It didn't make me feel anything. The room murmured agreement. Several guests nodded as if Richard had said something profound. Andrea's face went pale. But you said, the rules say you must entertain us. And while you played well, you didn't entertain. You understand the difference, don't you? Richard's voice was patronizing, like he was explaining something to a child. You're welcome to try again next year when you've developed more artistry. Please, Andrea said, her voice cracking. I haven't eaten today. I used my last money to get here to rent this violin. Please. The room was silent, watching, waiting to see what Richard would do. He sighed, as if deeply put upon. James, please escort our performer out, and give her $20 for her transportation home. We're not monsters. $20. The guests had spent more than that on a single glass of wine. As Andrea was led away, still clutching her violin, still holding back tears, the guests returned to their conversations, as if nothing had happened. This was just entertainment to them, just another amusing moment in their evening. Eleanor Monroe had seen enough. She stood intending to leave, but her friend caught her arm. Please stay, the woman whispered. There's one more performer. I heard she's just a kid. Eleanor hesitated. Part of her didn't want to witness any more of this grotesque display. But another part, the part that had dedicated her life to music and teaching, wanted to see this through, wanted to at least bear witness to what was happening here. One more, she said quietly. Then I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back. Neither of them had any idea what they were about to witness. In the staff room, Destiny heard the applause for Andrea, then the murmured conversations that followed. She couldn't make out the words, but she could hear the tone. Dismissive. Unimpressed. Her hands were shaking again, and this time it wasn't from hunger. James appeared in the doorway. His expression was grim. You're up next. But Destiny, I need you to understand something. What you're about to walk into. It's going to be brutal. These people have already rejected 2 perfectly competent performers. They're looking for reasons to say no. Looking for reasons to feel superior. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe you shouldn't. James agreed. But if you don't, you'll always wonder. And from what you've told me, you promised your mother you'd keep playing. No matter what. This is what that promise looks like sometimes. It looks like walking into a room full of people who've already decided you're not worth their time and proving them wrong. Destiny stood on shaky legs. I look terrible. They're going to judge me before I even touch the piano. They will, James said honestly. They absolutely will. So here's what you do. You let them look. You let them judge. You let them laugh if they want to. And then you sit at that piano and you show them that how you look has nothing to do with who you are or what you can do. He held out his arm. Ready, Destiny thought about her mother. About the hours of practice, about the promise she'd made, about the fact that she'd survived a year on the streets and was still standing. Ready, she said. They walked through the service corridor, through the kitchen where the staff stopped to watch them pass through a final hallway, and then James was opening a door, and Destiny was stepping into the light. The ballroom was massive. Crystal chandeliers threw glittering light across 50 well-dressed people seated at tables laden with food. More food than Destiny had seen in months. At the far end of this room, elevated on a stage, sat the most beautiful piano Destiny had ever seen in person. A Steinway Model D concert grand. 9 feet of perfect craftsmanship. The same piano used in concert halls and recording studios around the world. The same piano her mother had always dreamed of playing. For just a moment, Destiny forgot about everything else. Forgot about the people. Forgot about her fear. She just stared at that piano with pure longing. Then the whispers started. Is that a homeless person? What is she doing here? This is a joke, right? Oh my God, she smells. Richard, what is this? Destiny's face burned. She wanted to run, wanted to disappear, but James's hand was firm on her elbow, steadying her, reminding her why she was here. Richard Blackwood stood from his seat, his expression a mixture of confusion and annoyance. James, what exactly is going on? This is Destiny Williams, sir. She's your final performer for the evening. Is this some kind of prank? Richard looked Destiny up and down with barely concealed disgust. She's homeless. Look at her. She's a pianist, sir. The room erupted in laughter. Not polite chuckling. Real laughter, the kind that cuts. The kind that says, you don't belong here, have never belonged anywhere, will never belong anywhere. Destiny's hands curled into fists. The scar on her left hand stood out white against her skin. Richard shook his head, chuckling. James, I appreciate creativity, but this is absurd. Send her to the kitchen, give her a meal, and let's move on with our evening. She came here to perform. James said, his voice steady. According to your rules, sir, anyone who performs gets a chance. Those are your words. Every year. Richard's expression hardened. He didn't like being challenged, especially not in front of his guests. Fine. Fine. Let the girl embarrass herself, but make it quick. He turned to Destiny, his voice dripping with condescension. Can you even read music, young lady? Yes, Destiny said quietly. Speak up. We can't hear you. Yes, Destiny repeated louder this time. Well then, let's see if Street Trash can play piano. He gestured to the Steinway. Go ahead. Play us something. Anything. Though I have to warn you, we've already heard 2 performers tonight who actually had training and they didn't make the cut. So, good luck. The laughter continued as Destiny walked toward the stage. Her legs felt like they might give out. The room spun slightly from hunger and fear, but she kept moving. One step, then another. Then she was climbing the 3 steps to the stage. Then she was standing next to the Steinway. Then she was sitting on the bench, her fingers hovering over the keys. And in that moment, everything else fell away. The laughter, the judgment, the fear. Because this was a piano. A real, beautiful, perfectly tuned piano. And she hadn't touched an instrument this magnificent since before her mother died. Well, Richard called. We're waiting. Play something, if you can. Destiny closed her eyes, heard her mother's voice in her memory. Music isn't about perfection, baby. It's about soul. It's about truth. When you play, you tell your story. You tell it honest, and you tell it with everything you've got. She opened her eyes, looked directly at Richard Blackwood. What would you like me to play? She asked. Richard smiled, and there was cruelty in it. Oh, I think I'll choose for you. Let's see. Can you play Rachmaninoff? Several guests gasped. One man laughed outright, because anyone with even basic knowledge of classical music knew that Rachmaninoff was brutal, technically demanding, requiring not just skill, but enormous hands, physical strength, and years of training. Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, Richard specified. "If you know it, which I doubt." Destiny did know it. Her mother had played it, had taught it to her, had told her it was one of the pieces that separated the merely good from the truly great. "I know it," Destiny said. Wonderful Richard settled back in his chair, wineglass in hand. "Then please, enlighten us." The room fell silent, waiting, ready to watch her fail. But what none of them knew, what they couldn't have known, was that Destiny Williams had spent the last year playing this piece every single morning, had perfected it, had poured every ounce of her grief, her anger, her love, her hope into those notes, had made it hers. She placed her scarred fingers on the ivory keys, and she began to play. The first notes of Rachmaninoff's prelude in C-sharp minor rang out across the ballroom, and the laughter stopped. Because what came from that piano wasn't the fumbling of an amateur. It wasn't even the competent playing of someone with basic training. These were the opening chords, dark and foreboding, played with the kind of power and precision that should have been impossible from someone who looked like Destiny. The prelude begins with 3 heavy chords, like the tolling of a bell. Destiny struck them with perfect weight, perfect timing. Her hands, small but strong from a year of daily practice, moved with absolute certainty. Richard Blackwood's smile faltered. He sat up straighter in his chair. Around the room, conversations died. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Wine glasses were set down. Because something unexpected was happening. Something that didn't fit the narrative they'd constructed about this homeless girl. The melody emerged haunting and beautiful, flowing from Destiny's right hand, while her left maintained the relentless, churning bass. This piece is sometimes called The Bells of Moscow. It's a journey through darkness, despair, a soul crying out. And Destiny played it like she'd lived it, because she had. Every note carried weight. Every phrase had meaning. This wasn't just technical proficiency. This was something else. This was emotion made audible. Eleanor Monroe, the Curtis Institute professor who'd been about to leave, stood up from her seat. Her hand went to her mouth. She'd heard this piece performed hundreds of times by students, by professionals, by masters. But she'd never heard it played quite like this, with this much raw, honest feeling. The middle section of the prelude becomes more aggressive, more turbulent. Destiny's hands flew across the keys, her upper body swaying slightly with the music completely absorbed. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but not from nervousness. From the sheer physical demand of what she was doing. She was attacking this piece, making it submit to her will, making it tell her story. This was the part where she channeled the terror of sleeping on streets, the grief of losing her mother, the rage at a world that looked away from people like her, the desperate clinging hope that somehow someday things would get better. The guests sat transfixed. Some of them had tears in their eyes, though they didn't quite understand why. They only knew that something profound was happening. That this girl they'd dismissed, this homeless teenager they'd laughed at, was doing something none of them had expected. She was playing like her life depended on it, because in a way it did. But here's what nobody in that room knew yet. What even Destiny didn't fully understand. This performance was about to take a turn that would make what had happened so far seem like just the opening act, because Destiny Williams was about to do something that shouldn't have been possible. Something her mother had taught her. Something that would prove beyond any doubt that she wasn't just technically proficient. She was an artist. And watching from the back of the room, barely daring to breathe, Dr. Eleanor Monroe realized something that would change the course of Destiny's life. She was watching the rarest thing in the world of music. She was watching genius. But the transformation was just beginning. Because as Destiny approached the halfway point of the piece, as the melody reached its most anguished moment, she did something that made Eleanor gasp out loud. She started to improvise. Destiny had reached the point in Rachmaninoff's Prelude where the piece traditionally builds toward its massive, crashing climax. Every pianist plays it the same way. The same notes, the same structure. That's what's written. That's what's expected. But Destiny didn't do what was expected. She began to weave in something new. Jazz harmonies. Blue notes. The kind of improvisational runs her mother used to play on the streets of Philadelphia. She was taking Rachmaninoff's rigid, formal structure and breathing into it the soul of jazz, the freedom of improvisation, the raw emotion of blues. She was doing what her mother had taught her. She was making the conversation happen. Classical and jazz. Structure and freedom. Technique and soul. All at once. All in perfect, impossible harmony. Eleanor Monroe wasn't just standing anymore. She'd moved closer to the stage, her professional composure completely shattered. Because what Destiny was doing wasn't just skilled, it was revolutionary. It was taking two worlds of music that rarely touched and making them dance together. And it was working. The piece was building now, tension mounting with every measure. Destiny's entire body was engaged, her shoulders rolling with the motion, her feet working the pedals, her face a mask of intense concentration. The scar on her hand caught the light as her fingers flew across the keys. She was no longer conscious of the room, wasn't thinking about Richard Blackwood or his cruel guests, or whether she'd get fed tonight. She was inside the music now. Inside the space her mother had taught her to find, where nothing existed but sound and feeling and truth. The bass notes thundered, the melody soared, the jazz improvisation wove through the classical structure like gold thread through dark fabric. And then Destiny did something that nearly stopped Eleanor's heart. She looked up, mid-performance, eyes open, and for just a moment, just a fraction of a second, she smiled, not at anyone in the room, at someone they couldn't see, someone only she could. She was playing for her mother. And in that moment, Angela Williams might as well have been standing right there watching her daughter fulfill the promise she'd made. Keep playing, baby. No matter what happens, keep playing. Destiny was keeping that promise. With everything she had. The piece was approaching its final section now. The moment where Rachmaninoff brings everything crashing down in a display of power and fury. Traditionally, it's played with massive bell-like chords that ring out like thunder. But Destiny, true to what she'd learned from her mother, wasn't going to play it traditionally. As she transitioned into the final passage, as her hands positioned themselves for those famous concluding chords, she made a split-second decision. A choice that would define not just this performance, but everything that came after. She was going to end this piece not with classical grandeur, but with something else. She was going to end it with soul. The room held its breath. Even Richard Blackwood had forgotten to maintain his superior expression. He was leaning forward, caught in the music despite himself. Despite everything he'd said, despite everything he believed about people like Destiny. James stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. He was thinking about his daughter, Maya, thinking about all the times she'd needed someone to believe in her, and no one had. Thinking about how music, real music, has the power to break down every wall we build between each other. And Destiny, 17-year-old Destiny Williams, who'd spent the last year sleeping in doorways and bus shelters, who hadn't eaten in 2 days, who carried a scar on her hand and scars on her heart, was about to show a room full of billionaires what talent looked like when it came from the very bottom. What art looked like when it was born from pain and hope in equal measure. What it meant to take something classical and make it human. Her hands rose, the moment stretched. And then she brought them down. The final section of Rachmaninoff's prelude exploded from the Steinway with a force that physically moved through the room. Those massive bell-like chords that the piece is famous for rang out with perfect power. Destiny's arms lifted and fell, each chord precisely measured, perfectly weighted. This was the part that required not just skill, but physical strength. The ability to make the piano sing with absolute authority. And Destiny had it. Every eye in the room was locked on her. The guests had forgotten their wine, their food, their previous mockery. They were witnessing something that didn't fit their worldview, something that challenged every assumption they'd made. Richard Blackwood's wine glass hung forgotten in his hand, tilted at an angle. A few drops of red wine dripped onto his expensive suit. He didn't notice. The bass notes thundered like an approaching storm. The melody in the treble cut through it like lightning. Destiny's fingers were a blur moving across the keyboard, with the kind of precision that came from years of practice, from muscle memory so deep it had survived everything life had thrown at her. This was why she'd practiced every morning at 6. This was why she'd never given up, even when giving up would have been so much easier. Because somewhere inside her, in a place deeper than conscious thought, she'd known this moment would come. Not this exact moment, not this exact room full of people, but a moment when she'd need to prove that she was more than her circumstances, that her mother's legacy lived on in her hands, that music could survive anything, even grief, even poverty, even a year on the streets. The piece continued its relentless drive toward conclusion, each chord built on the last. The tension was nearly unbearable. Several people in the audience had tears streaming down their faces and didn't know why. This was what great art did. It bypassed the intellect entirely and spoke directly to something primal, something true. Eleanor Monroe was openly crying now. In 30 years of teaching at one of the world's finest conservatories, she'd heard countless performances of this exact piece, competition winners, Carnegie Hall debut artists, recording artists, master performers, and this 17-year-old homeless girl was playing it as well as any of them. Maybe better. Because she wasn't just playing notes, she was living them. The scar on Destiny's hand stood out stark white against her skin as her left hand pounded out those deep bass notes. That scar was from a broken bottle she'd used to defend herself one night on the streets. A reminder of violence, of survival, of the price she'd paid just to keep breathing. And now she was using that same hand to create beauty, to take pain and transform it into something transcendent. That's what art was, really, the transformation of suffering into meaning. Destiny could feel the piece building toward its natural conclusion, the place where Rachmaninoff intended it to end, the traditional ending, the expected ending. But as her hands moved toward those final, thunderous chords, as the room held its breath for the conclusion they all anticipated, Destiny made her choice. She was going to give them something else, something her mother had taught her, something that would prove beyond any doubt that she wasn't just technically proficient. She was an artist with her own voice, her own truth, her own story to tell. The classical perfection she'd demonstrated for the past 3 minutes was impressive. It proved she had the skill, the training, the discipline. But now she was going to prove she had soul. At the exact moment where Rachmaninoff's prelude should have ended with those final conclusive chords, Destiny did something that made Eleanor Monroe gasp out loud. She didn't end it. Instead, she took the melody, that haunting, dark Russian theme that had dominated the piece, and she transformed it. In real time, in front of 50 people. She turned it into jazz. Her right hand picked up the melody and began to improvise sliding blue notes into the classical structure, adding the kinds of runs and trills and chromatic passages that her mother used to play on the streets. Her left hand shifted from the rigid formal bass pattern of Rachmaninoff into a walking bass line, steady and rhythmic and full of swing. The Steinway sang with a completely different voice now. The darkness was still there, the weight of the original piece, but threaded through it was something else. Hope. Resilience. The sound of someone who'd been through hell and come out the other side, still able to make beauty. This wasn't just improvisation. This was translation. This was Destiny taking a piece written by a Russian composer over a century ago and showing how its themes of struggle, suffering, and ultimate transcendence were universal, were timeless, were just as true for a homeless black girl in Philadelphia as they'd been for Rachmaninoff in Moscow. The guests sat in absolute shock. This wasn't just unexpected. This was impossible. Classical pianists didn't do this. They played what was written. They honored the composer's intention. They didn't take one of the most famous pieces in the piano repertoire and completely reimagine it in front of an audience. But Destiny was doing exactly that. And it was working. Her improvisation built on itself, each phrase flowing into the next with the kind of natural logic that couldn't be planned or practiced. This was pure creation happening in real time. Her fingers found notes that shouldn't have worked with Rachmaninoff's harmony, but somehow did. Found rhythms that bridged classical and jazz in ways that most trained musicians would have said were impossible. Eleanor Monroe knew what she was witnessing. This was the rarest kind of musical talent. Not just technical skill, not just good ears or quick fingers. This was genius. The ability to hear music as a living, breathing thing that could be shaped and reshaped without losing its essential truth. She'd seen it maybe 3 times in her entire career, and never in someone so young. Never in someone who'd had no formal training beyond what a street musician mother had been able to teach. Destiny's improvisation began to incorporate specific elements now. Quotes from other pieces. References that only someone who'd really lived inside music would catch. She wove in fragments of Duke Ellington bits of Thelonious Monk echoes of her mother's own playing style. She was creating a conversation across time, across genres, across the artificial boundaries that separated high art from low art. She was proving those boundaries were meaningless, that music was music and truth was truth, and if you had something real to say, it didn't matter whether you said it in the language of classical conservatories or jazz clubs or street corners. Her face was streaked with tears now, but her playing never faltered. She was crying because she could feel her mother's presence so strongly, it was almost physical. Could hear Angela's voice in her head, encouraging her, celebrating with her, telling her, "Yes, baby, yes, this is exactly right. This is what I taught you. This is why we played." The scar on her hand blurred as her fingers moved faster and faster, building toward a new kind of climax. Not the one Rachmaninoff had written, but the one Destiny needed. The one that would tell her story completely. She thought about sleeping in doorways, about the hunger that never really went away, about the people who'd looked through her like she was invisible, about James letting her in tonight, about this moment, this impossible moment where she was proving that worth wasn't determined by wealth or appearance or circumstances. Worth was intrinsic, undeniable, and she had always been worth something, even when the world couldn't see it. The improvisation reached its peak, a cascade of notes that somehow contained both the darkness of Rachmaninoff and the hope of jazz. And then, with perfect instinct, Destiny began to bring it back down, started to resolve all the tension she'd built, started to guide it toward an ending that would honor both traditions she'd drawn from. Her left hand returned to the deep, tolling bass notes of the original piece. Her right hand wove one final, elaborate run that connected all the themes she'd introduced, brought them together, unified them. And then, with a sense of timing that seemed to come from somewhere beyond conscious thought, she prepared for the actual ending. The real ending. The one she'd been building toward for the last 7 minutes. The ending that would leave every single person in that room changed, whether they wanted to be or not. The final 30 seconds of Destiny's performance would be talked about for years afterward. Those who were there would struggle to describe it, would use words like transcendent and otherworldly and impossible, and still feel like they hadn't captured what it was really like to witness it. Because what Destiny did in those final moments wasn't just music, it was alchemy. She brought back Rachmaninoff's original theme one last time, but transformed by everything that had come before. The melody was the same, but it carried different meaning now. It had been through the jazz, crucible had been broken down and rebuilt, had been infused with soul and pain and hope. Her hands moved across the keyboard with absolute authority. Every note was exactly where it needed to be. Every dynamic shift was perfect. The soft parts were so quiet they were almost whispers. The loud parts shook the chandeliers. This was a 17-year-old girl who hadn't eaten in 2 days, who'd slept in a doorway last night, who had every reason to be weak and uncertain, playing with the kind of power and conviction that professional performers twice her age would struggle to achieve. The guests were transfixed. Some of them had their hands over their mouths. Some were openly weeping. All of them understood on some level deeper than words that they were witnessing something they'd never forget. Richard Blackwood sat frozen, his face a mask of emotions he couldn't quite name. Shame, awe, recognition that he'd nearly sent this girl away without giving her a chance, that he'd laughed at her, that he'd called her street trash. James stood in the doorway, both hands pressed to his chest, tears streaming freely. He was thinking about his daughter Maya, about how she'd needed just one person to believe in her to see her worth, and that person had been him, and he'd failed. He'd let anger and hurt drive her away, and he'd never gotten her back. But tonight he'd done for Destiny what he couldn't do for Maya. He'd given her a chance, and she was taking that chance and turning it into magic. Eleanor Monroe had pulled out her phone and was recording her hands, shaking so badly the video would be almost unusable. But she didn't care. She needed some kind of evidence that this had really happened, that she hadn't imagined it. Destiny built toward the final chord. The actual final chord this time. The one that would end it for real. She could feel it coming. Could feel the piece reaching its natural conclusion, could feel 7 minutes of sustained intensity preparing to resolve. Her hands rose above the keyboard. The room held its breath. Time seemed to slow down. And then she brought her hands down one last time. The final chord was massive. It contained everything that had come before, all the darkness, all the light, all the pain and hope and anger and love. It rang out across the ballroom like a bell, like a declaration, like a statement that could not be denied. I am here. I exist. I matter. The sound filled the space, resonated off the walls, seemed to hang in the air impossibly long. And then gradually, it began to fade. the overtones decaying, the vibrations settling. Until finally, there was silence. Complete silence. Destiny sat at the piano, her hands still on the keys, her head bowed, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She'd given everything, had poured out every piece of herself, and now she was empty, spent, barely able to believe what had just happened. For 5 seconds, maybe more, no one moved. No one spoke. The entire ballroom was frozen. And then Eleanor Monroe began to clap. It started slowly, single measured claps from the back of the room. Then others joined in. Then more, and then like a wave breaking the entire room erupted. People weren't just applauding, they were standing. They were cheering. They were crying and clapping, and some of them were saying, "Oh my God," over and over again because they didn't have other words. It was a standing ovation, not the polite kind that happens because it's expected, the real kind. The kind that comes from genuine shock and awe, and the recognition that you've just witnessed something extraordinary. Destiny slowly raised her head, looked out at the room full of people who'd laughed at her 10 minutes ago, who'd judged her, who'd dismissed her as worthless. All of them were on their feet. All of them were applauding. For her. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the hunger and exhaustion were catching up. She wavered, started to fall, and James was there. He'd crossed the room in seconds, was up on the stage, was catching her before she hit the ground. "I've got you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've got you, Destiny. You did it. You did it." "Did I? Was it okay?" Destiny asked, her voice barely a whisper. James laughed through his tears. "Okay, child, you just changed every life in this room, including yours. Because Eleanor Monroe was already pushing through the crowd, was already climbing onto the stage, was already pulling out her card from Curtis Institute. And Richard Blackwood was standing there, his face pale, his hands shaking, understanding that he'd been given a gift tonight. The gift of being proven completely undeniably wrong. The gift of seeing his own cruelty reflected back at him. The gift of a chance to do better, but most importantly, standing in that ballroom with 50 of Philadelphia's wealthiest residents, giving her a standing ovation that showed no signs of stopping. Destiny Williams understood something that would sustain her for the rest of her life. Her mother had been right. The music was in her. Not in fancy schools or expensive pianos or the approval of wealthy people. In her. And nothing, not poverty, not homelessness, not grief, not cruelty, could take that away. She'd kept her promise. And in doing so, she'd changed everything. The applause continued for almost 2 full minutes. Destiny sat on the piano bench, James's hand on her shoulder, barely able to process what was happening. She'd performed. She'd finished. And somehow impossibly, they were clapping. Eleanor Monroe reached the stage, her professional composure completely shattered. Mascara streaked her face. Her hands were shaking. She knelt down so she was eye level with Destiny. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Destiny. Destiny Williams." "Destiny, I'm Dr. Eleanor Monroe. I teach piano at the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia. Do you know what that is?" Destiny nodded slowly. It's one of the best music schools in the world." "That's right." Eleanor took Destiny's hands very carefully, examining the scar on the left one, the calluses on both, from daily practice, the strength in those young fingers. "Who taught you to play like that?" "My mom. She was a street musician. Jazz piano, mostly. She taught me classical too, but she always said you had to bring soul into it. Had to make it your own. Your mother was a very wise woman." Eleanor's voice caught. "Where is she now?" "She died 2 years ago. Cancer." Eleanor closed her eyes briefly, understanding flooding through her. That explained everything. The raw emotion, the desperation, the way destiny had played like her life depended on it. "And you've been homeless since then?" "For about a year. I was in foster care for a while, but it didn't work out." Eleanor's professional mind was already working, already planning, but her heart was breaking for this girl. "Destiny, I want you to listen to me very carefully. What you just did, what I just witnessed, that wasn't just good playing. That was genius. Do you understand real, genuine genius?" Destiny's eyes widened. I just played like my mom taught me. Your mother taught you something that most musicians never learn. That music isn't about the notes on the page. It's about truth, about emotion, about communication. And you have a gift that cannot be wasted." Eleanor pulled a card from her purse. "I want to offer you a full scholarship to Curtis Institute. Full tuition, full room and board, a stipend for living expenses. Everything. You'd start in January, which gives us 2 months to get you prepared, get you stable, get you ready." Destiny stared at the card like it might disappear if she looked away. I don't understand. Why would you do that?" "Because in 30 years of teaching, I've maybe seen 3 students with your level of natural talent, and all of them had years of formal training, wealthy families supporting them every advantage. You've had none of that, and you just played a piece that would challenge most of my advanced students. Imagine what you could do with proper training, with resources, with support." Eleanor squeezed Destiny's hands. "You deserve this chance. Not because I feel sorry for you, though my heart is breaking for what you've been through, but because you've earned it, because you're gifted, because the world needs to hear what you have to say through music." Tears streamed down Destiny's face. "I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll let me help you. Say you'll take this chance and become everything your mother knew you could be." Destiny looked down at the card in her hands. Curtis Institute of Music. Dr. Eleanor Monroe. Piano faculty. A phone number. An email address. A chance. She thought about her mother. About the promise she'd made. About sleeping in doorways and playing in a music shop every morning just to stay connected to the one thing that mattered. About walking into this mansion tonight with nothing but hunger and desperation and hope. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll do it." Eleanor pulled her into a hug, this distinguished professor who'd taught hundreds of students and maintained perfect professional boundaries, with all of them holding this homeless teenager like she was her own daughter. "You're going to do incredible things," Destiny Williams, Eleanor said. "This is just the beginning." But they weren't alone on that stage. Richard Blackwood had been standing a few feet away watching this exchange, his face a portrait of conflicting emotions. Now he stepped forward. Richard Blackwood had built his fortune by being right, by seeing opportunities others missed, by trusting his instincts about people and situations. He'd made billions of dollars by being good at judging character, at assessing value, at knowing what things were worth. And tonight, he'd been catastrophically wrong. He approached Destiny and Eleanor slowly, like someone approaching something sacred. The applause had finally died down, but the room was still silent. Everyone watching, waiting to see what would happen next. "Miss Williams," Richard said, his voice rough. "May I speak with you?" Destiny looked at him, at this man who'd called her street trash 20 minutes ago, who'd laughed at her, who'd been prepared to send her away without even letting her try. She nodded slowly. Richard got down on one knee, putting himself below her eye level, a gesture of humility that shocked everyone who knew him. Richard Blackwood didn't kneel. For anyone. Ever. "I need to apologize," he said. "Not just to you, to everyone here, but especially to you." He gestured to the room. "Every year I host this event. I tell myself I'm doing charity work, that I'm giving people chances. But the truth, I've been too arrogant to see until tonight is that I've been doing the exact opposite. I've been using people's desperation to entertain my friends. I've been judging worth by appearances. I've been treating human beings like they need to earn the right to be treated with dignity." His voice cracked. "And tonight you walked in here and I looked at you and decided you were worthless before you played a single note. I laughed at you. I called you street trash. I was going to send you away without giving you a chance. And if it hadn't been for James, if it hadn't been for his integrity, his compassion, I would have done exactly that. I would have sent away one of the most talented musicians I've ever heard in my life, because she didn't look like what I expected talent to look like." Tears were running down Richard's face now. Real tears. Not performative emotion, but genuine shame and regret. "I can't undo what I said. I can't take back the cruelty, but I can do better going forward. I'm going to shut down these events. Entertainment for dinner is over. No more making people perform for food. No more treating charity like a spectator sport." He looked around the room at his wealthy guests. "And I'm going to start actually helping people. Real help, not help that requires them to debase themselves first." He turned back to Destiny. "Dr. Monroe has offered you a scholarship, and that's wonderful. That's what should happen. But I want to do more. I want to set up a fund to cover any costs you have beyond what Curtis provides. Clothes, books, medical care, whatever you need. And I don't want thanks for it. I don't want recognition. I want to do it because it's right. Because I owe you more than an apology. I owe you action." Destiny studied him. This man who'd been so cruel, who was now crying in front of 50 people. She thought about what her mother used to say, that people could change if they really wanted to, that everyone deserved a second chance if they were genuine about taking it. "You can't set up a fund just for me," she said quietly. "That's not fair. There are other kids like me, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Kids on the streets who have talent, who have gifts, who just need someone to give them a chance." Richard stared at her. Here was this girl who'd been homeless for a year, who hadn't eaten in days, who'd just been offered a life-changing opportunity, and her first thought was about other people. Other kids in similar situations. "You're right," he said slowly. "You're absolutely right. So here's what I'll do. I'll set up a foundation, a real one, not a tax shelter. A foundation dedicated to finding and supporting young artists from disadvantaged backgrounds. Kids who have talent, but no resources. And you'll be the first recipient, but not the last. Never the last." He stood up, addressed the room. "Everyone here tonight witnessed something extraordinary. And I hope you all feel the same shame I do, the same wake-up call, because we've been playing at charity while people like Destiny were actually suffering. That ends now." He looked at James, who stood nearby. "And James, I owe you an apology too. You've been trying to tell me for years that these events were wrong, that I was being cruel, and I never listened. You listened to your conscience tonight. You gave Destiny a chance when I would have thrown her out. That took courage. And I'm grateful." James nodded, too emotional to speak. Richard turned back to Destiny. "I can't change the past. But if you'll let me, I'd like to help build your future. Will you accept that Destiny thought about it? Thought about anger and forgiveness and second chances, and whether people really could change. She thought about what her mother would want her to do." "Yes," she said finally. "But on one condition, the foundation has to actually work. It can't just be about money. It has to be about really seeing people, really giving them chances. Promise me that." "I promise," Richard said. "You have my word." After Richard moved away, James finally approached Destiny. He'd been holding back, not wanting to intrude on the important conversations happening. But now he couldn't stay away anymore. "Destiny," he said, his voice barely steady. "I need to tell you something." She looked up at him, at this man who'd been the first person to show her kindness tonight, who'd believed in her when no one else would. "I had a daughter once," James said. "Her name was Maya. She was about your age when she ran away from home. We'd had a fight. A stupid, pointless fight about grades and responsibility and all the things that seemed so important at the time. She left, and I didn't go after her right away because I was angry. Thought she needed to learn a lesson." His voice broke. "By the time I realized my mistake, by the time I started looking for her, it was too late. I found her 3 years later. She'd died alone in an abandoned building. Overdose. She was homeless, and I never knew. Never found her in time." Destiny reached out, took his hand. "Every year," James continued, "I watch these events. Watch Mr. Blackwood and his guests treat desperate people like entertainment, and it kills me. Because I see Maya in every one of them. I see the daughter I failed. The daughter I didn't save." He looked directly at Destiny. "But tonight, when you knocked on that door, when I saw you standing there looking so much like her, I had a chance to do what I couldn't do for Maya. I had a chance to believe in someone, to give them a shot. And you took that chance and you did something miraculous with it." Tears streamed down both their faces now. "I'm not asking to replace your father or anything like that," James said. "But if you ever need anything, if you ever need someone to talk to, or somewhere safe to go, or just someone who believes in you, you call me. Okay, you're not alone anymore." Destiny stood up wobbly on her feet and hugged him. This man who'd lost his daughter. This man who'd seen something worth saving in a homeless girl at his door. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me in. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me a chance." They stood there for a long moment, this older man and this teenage girl, both of them crying, both of them healing something that had been broken. And watching from a few feet away, Richard Blackwood made another decision. "James," he said, "you have a daughter to put through college, don't you?" James pulled back from Destiny, wiped his eyes. "Sir, your daughter. The one you're still in contact with. She's at community college, right? Struggling to pay tuition, yes, sir. She's working 2 jobs to afford it. Not anymore. The foundation we're setting up, its first 2 recipients are going to be Destiny and your daughter. Full rides, to wherever they want to go. It's the least I can do to thank you for having more integrity than I've ever had." James stood there stunned. "Sir, I don't argue with me, James. For once in 12 years, don't argue with me. Just accept it. Let me do this one thing right." James nodded, unable to speak. 3 years later, on a cool autumn evening in New York City, Carnegie Hall prepared for a very special performance. The venue was sold out, every seat filled. The audience was a strange mix. Wealthy patrons of the arts sat next to people who'd scraped together money to afford tickets. Students from Curtis Institute, musicians from all over the country. And in the front row, 3 people who'd been there from the beginning. James, now retired from working for Richard Blackwood, dressed in his finest suit, his daughter Rebecca beside him. She'd graduated from Temple University magna cum laude and was now in graduate school for social work. Eleanor Monroe, who'd become more than just a teacher to Destiny, who'd become a mentor, a second mother, a guiding presence through 3 intense years of training. And Richard Blackwood, who'd kept every promise he'd made that night. The Blackwood Foundation for Young Artists had supported 57 young musicians, dancers, and performers from disadvantaged backgrounds. Richard himself had become quiet, humble, focused on actually helping rather than being seen to help. He never spoke publicly about that night at his mansion, but it had changed him fundamentally. The lights dimmed. A figure walked onto the stage. Destiny Williams, now 20 years old, had changed in obvious ways. She'd filled out no longer dangerously thin. Her hair was styled. She wore an elegant black dress. She looked healthy, confident, alive. But her eyes were the same. Still held that depth, that understanding of what it meant to struggle to survive, to keep going when everything said to give up. She sat at the Steinway Grand Piano Center stage, adjusted the bench, placed her hands on the keys. The scar on her left hand was still visible, a thin white line from thumb to wrist. She'd been offered surgery to remove it, had declined. It was part of her story, part of who she was. "Good evening," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Tonight I want to play something special, a piece that means everything to me. It's Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, but I'm going to play it the way my mother taught me, the way she believed all music should be played, with truth, with soul, with love." She paused. 3 years ago, I was homeless. I was desperate. I was ready to give up. And then some people, some extraordinary people, gave me a chance. They saw past my circumstances to who I really was. They believed in me when I could barely believe in myself. This performance is for them. But more than that, it's for my mother, Angela Williams, who taught me that music isn't about perfection. It's about being human, about being real. She took a breath. It's also for every kid out there who's struggling right now, who feels invisible, who thinks nobody cares. I want you to know that you matter, that you're worth everything, that your circumstances don't define your value, that somewhere someone is ready to believe in you. You just have to keep going long enough to find them. And then she began to play. The piece started exactly as it had 3 years ago, those 3 heavy chords like bells tolling. But this time Destiny wasn't playing from a place of desperation. She was playing from a place of gratitude, of triumph, of knowing she'd survived and was thriving. The music filled Carnegie Hall, bounced off the walls, reached every person in the audience. And just like 3 years ago, halfway through, Destiny began to improvise, began to weave in jazz, began to make it her own. This had become her signature, her calling card, the thing that made her performances unique. Critics called her the bridge because she connected worlds of music that rarely touched, because she made classical accessible and jazz sophisticated, because she proved that artificial boundaries between genres were meaningless. The piece built to its climax. The audience sat transfixed. And when Destiny played those final chords, when the last note faded into silence, the ovation that followed was instantaneous and deafening. But Destiny barely heard it, because as she stood and bowed, as flowers were brought to the stage, as the audience rose to its feet, she was looking at the 3 people in the front row. James, who'd given her the first chance. Eleanor, who'd given her the training and support. Richard, who'd learned from his mistakes and committed to doing better. After the performance, after the backstage congratulations, and the photos and the interviews, Destiny stood alone in the empty hall for a moment. Just her and the piano and the ghost of her mother. "I did it, Mom," she whispered. "I kept my promise. I kept playing. And look where it led." She could almost hear her mother's voice responding, could almost feel Angela's presence. "I always knew you would, baby. I always knew." Destiny Williams's story became famous not because it was unique, but because it wasn't. There are thousands of Destinies out there right now. Young people with extraordinary gifts, trapped in impossible circumstances. Kids who could change the world if someone would just give them a chance. The Blackwood Foundation, inspired by that one night, has grown into something nobody could have predicted. It supports over 500 young artists every year, not just musicians. Dancers, painters, writers, actors, kids from homeless shelters, from foster care, from poverty, kids who have talent but no resources. And every single one of them learns about destiny, about the girl who walked into a billionaire's mansion homeless and hungry and scared, and who changed not just her own life, but countless others. Because that's what art does when it's real, when it's true, when it comes from a place of genuine emotion and experience. It doesn't just entertain, it transforms. It breaks down the walls we build between each other. It reminds us that worth isn't determined by wealth or status or circumstances. Destiny still performs that Rachmaninoff jazz fusion piece at every major concert. Still tells the story of where she came from. Still uses her platform to advocate for homeless youth and arts education. Still carries that scar on her left hand as a reminder of how far she's come. Eleanor Monroe says that teaching Destiny was the privilege of her career, that watching her grow from a terrified teenager into a confident artist reminded her why she became a teacher in the first place. James says that helping Destiny helped him heal something he thought would never heal, that she gave him a chance to do for someone else's daughter what he couldn't do for his own. And Richard Blackwood, who's donated millions to the foundation, who's completely changed his approach to wealth and charity, says that Destiny taught him the most important lesson of his life. That you can't judge people by their appearances. That genius doesn't announce itself. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply give someone a chance. But perhaps the most important part of Destiny's story isn't what happened to her. It's what she's done with what happened to her. Because she didn't just accept help and move on. She turned around and extended her hand to others. Last year, she established the Angela Williams Scholarship Fund, named after her mother specifically for children of street musicians, for kids being raised in poverty by parents who chose art over security, for young people who understand that music isn't just something you do, it's something you are. The first recipient was a 12-year-old boy from Detroit, whose father plays saxophone outside the Tigers Stadium. The second was a 15-year-old girl from Seattle, whose mother busks with a guitar in Pike Place Market. The third was a 14-year-old from New Orleans, whose entire family are street performers. Destiny met with each of them personally, told them her story, told them that their circumstances didn't define their worth, that they had something valuable to say, that the world needed to hear their voices, because that's the real lesson of Destiny Williams's story. Not that someone rescued her, though people did. Not that she had extraordinary talent, though she does. But that she took a second chance and multiplied it, took one act of kindness and turned it into dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. She took pain and transformed it into purpose, took suffering and turned it into meaning, took the worst thing that ever happened to her, losing her mother, losing her home, losing everything, and refused to let it make her bitter. Instead, she let it make her better. My mom used to say that music is a conversation, Destiny said in a recent interview. It's how we talk to each other when words aren't enough. And I think kindness is like that too. When James let me in that night, he was starting a conversation. When Dr. Monroe offered me a scholarship, she was continuing it. When Mr. Blackwood admitted he was wrong and tried to do better, he was adding to it. And now I get to keep that conversation going, get to pass it on to other kids who need someone to believe in them. She paused, smiled. That's what I want my legacy to be. Not my performances, though I hope they're good. Not my recordings or my awards or any of that. I want my legacy to be that I heard someone say, "I believe in you," and I made sure other people got to hear those same words. Because those might be the most powerful words in any language. I believe in you. You matter. You're worth it. Keep going. Destiny Williams kept going, kept playing, kept her promise to her mother. And in doing so, she reminded all of us that talent has no address, that genius wears no crown, that sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is simply a chance. Because you never know what someone might become if you just let them try, if you just believe in them, if you just open the door and say, "Come in, show us what you can do." That's all destiny needed. That's all any of us needs. Just a chance. Just someone willing to look past the surface and see what's underneath. Just someone brave enough to say, "I believe in you." And if this story moved you, if it made you think differently about the people you see on the streets, if it reminded you that everyone has a story and worth and dreams, then maybe you can be that person for someone else. Maybe you can be the one who gives a chance. Maybe you can be the one who believes. Maybe you can be the one who changes everything. Because that's what Destiny learned that night in Richard Blackwood's mansion playing Rachmaninoff on a Steinway grand, proving that she was worth so much more than anyone had believed. Sometimes all it takes is one person, one chance, one moment where someone looks at you and sees not what you appear to be, but what you actually are. Human, valuable, worth believing in. Keep playing, no matter what happens. Keep playing. That was Angela Williams's final message to her daughter. And Destiny has spent every day since making sure that message echoes far beyond just one girl and one piano. She's making sure it reaches everyone who needs to hear it, including you.